Today I'm joined by Roland Woldt of What's Your Baseline podcast. Roland, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine, and thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So, you haven't been a podcaster your entire life, I suspect. Can you share a little bit about your background and your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, sure, happy to do so. Where do I start? This summer I will have my 40th work anniversary to get this out of the way. I'm old for those of you who are not on the movie. No, I started from a background perspective. I started getting drafted into the German Armed Forces because that's what you did in that time, and thought it wasn't too bad, And I signed up and I stayed 11 years as an active tank officer, driving around in those main battle tanks, and then after that, after I retired at the tender age of 29. I still stayed 10 years in the reserves before I moved to America, where I live now. Um, After that time, I started half of those 30 years. I spent either with big consulting companies, I worked for Accenture, Anderson Consulting at that point, and KPMG. And the other half I spent with vendors in the business process management and enterprise architecture field. For those of you who know names like Aris, Software AG, iGraphics, those are the vendors that I work with. So I've seen both sides from a consulting side as well as from a software creator side. And then a few years ago, I don't know if I was bored, I started writing, and then I figured out writing is hard, speaking is easier. So I asked my co-host if he wanted to start a podcast, and it took him like 3 milliseconds to say yes. And then a couple of years later, I thought, oh, wait, you've written so much, and by now I have published 2 books in that field, and I'm currently building a network of experts to take our little what's your baseline endeavor to the next higher level, and offer more in the space for architects, for process managers.
Well, congratulations on your 2 books and on the launch of your podcast. Clearly, you've worn a few hats to get to where you are today. And as an entrepreneur, we need to show up as leaders. I'm sure, and especially being a member of a military unit, and I'm sure you've held several positions in your
Mhm.
military career. What does the word leadership mean to you, and how has that definition of leadership changed for you over the years?
It's That's a very good question. I think it's 2 things. It's not being the boss, right? So not doing the bossy behavior and having the corner office and whatever, all those perks that might come or come not with it, I think you have 2 things. You have to take care, right? You have to take care of what you are tasked to accomplish, your mission, and you have to take care of your people, right? How to get there. And if you miss one of the two, well, then you obviously failed. And from an attitude perspective, this is something that I learned very early on when I was an officer's candidate, is you don't give orders, you give an objective. And then your job as a leader is to take a step back and enable your men to accomplish the mission that you gave them. So it's that servant leadership, it's that whatever, leading from behind, however you want to call it, that is the attitude that I bring to the table. Do I care if we accomplish what we want to do? Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, because obviously we're all in here in business and elsewhere. We're here to create results, So if something doesn't work out, well, I will interject and do stuff.
I love that. And so, from an operational point of view, you said, taking care of people. For
Mhm.
you personally, how does that show up? And what does that mean for you?
Show a genuine interest in the individuals. So I hate that the personnel department is called human resources because it sounds like machines, right? Oh yeah, we have to give them money and then they go robot, right? I think you're not a leader, you're a manager if you're doing that. And I think what we need is more leaders and fewer managers. So show a genuine interest in your people. Uh, every one of us has been through some hardships, from things like your kids get sick to somebody died to you just have a bad day, you know. Per definition, you never be you can't, not every day can be your best day, right? So uh, that means you need to put that into consideration, right? And be genuine. If you say something to somebody, stand by your word. Don't don't pretend and don't play games. I think that's what I think a good people leader makes is a result of it. And I had two positions in my past where people put things behind and said hashtag Roland cares. Right, so that was the biggest promotion that I could receive, from the people reporting to me to say, oh yeah, he's caring about us.
I love that. So it sounds like, you're showing up as yourself, you're genuine, you're authentic, and like you said, you genuinely care about other people. You're invested
Mhm.
in how they not just perform, but just how they're doing in their roles.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, and I think it's two things, and I don't want to go into that latest fad in our industry, oh AI, the digital co-worker, which is all nonsense. Stop the anthropomorphism. I think that's the English word for it. Stop that nonsense. It's just an automation technique. Go and automate your processes with that stuff. Yes, it can do things, but it's not your co-worker, right? So stop that, but treat people like people. We're multifaceted individuals, right? And I think from a personality perspective, one thing you need to um, bring to the table and a skill you must have is to be able to reflect um, on yourself. I don't know if you've noticed it. The best leaders I worked with, they could make fun of themselves. And you just can't do this if you can reflect it and you see, oh man, this went south, didn't it? And you laugh it and it's good, But you realize you learned something. And those individuals who have that ability to take a step back, laugh about themselves, reflect what they did and learn and become better the next time. I think those are the good leaders. And that's one of the things that I try to um, uh, go forward with. And obviously having a good laugh once in a while on about yourself is also good for morale.
I couldn't agree more. I think, not to take yourself too seriously. And like you said, take moments to reflect when things don't necessarily go the way they were planned,
Yeah,
adjust, and then move forward.
move on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What's one question leaders should ask themselves more often but rarely do?
Do I do what I ask my people to do? So to give you another, I don't want to make this a military podcast, right? But in the German armed forces, besides that mission principle that you have, there's a little booklet that we hand out to each leader, right? It might be the sergeant in his first command, up to whomever. And it has 10 principles of good leadership. And that's how we hold people accountable. And one of them is that you share the harshness of the environment, of the situation with your men. You're not better than your regular private. And it doesn't matter that this is your job and you do it for 20 years, and this guy is a draftee and does it once in his 15 months. It doesn't matter. You and him, you're in the same boat, right? So you share it. You're not better than anyone else. And I think that is the thing that a lot of people forget, especially when you see people. I don't want to ditch on MBAs, I don't know what you studied, but a lot of people see just the money and the glamour and oh, that's what I want, and then they go elbow first into this and me, and I don't like that. When I encounter one of those guys, I pretty quickly turn around, go away, and say, yeah, good luck, you do you. and that was it. But I think a good leader should have that attitude. You're with your people, and if you don't do this, well, what will happen? They will turn around and they will leave you alone and stranded, right? And you can't get them to do what you want them to do because they don't trust you.
So true. So true. Looking back, what's one piece of advice you'd give yourself as a leader earlier on in your journey?
Don't ask for permission, just do it. So one of the things that I don't know if I regret it. Um, I had when I wrote my first book, right? That's a few years ago. I had the first idea of writing a book back in 2005-ish, right? And uh, wanted to write it with a coworker and whatever, right? And then life came in between. I moved from Germany to America and kids and all that nonsense. And then I finally published it last year. And in the first thing, I dedicated it to my wife and my kids. And I said, look, it just took 19 years to publish, right? So whenever somebody buys my book, he sees that little thing, and I said, damn, I wish I would have done it earlier because I have missed so many meetings, so many nice people, having conversations like this, getting new ideas that help you as an individual grow. So if I was the 20-year-old student now, and I'm happy to be able to rack up student debt like hell, but I'm in that prestigious university now. I would recommend myself to let off a little bit of the hot air, and don't be blinded by all that stuff, but rather say, okay, how does that affect me? How do I change? Because that's obviously why you send kids to college, right? To say, okay, now you mature, right? What does that mean? And one of the things is, well, don't ask for permissions, just do it. Obviously, you shouldn't do stupid things that end you up in jail, don't do that. But in when it comes to business, in how to interact with others, in how you implement your ideas, right? Also, how you put where you put your efforts and how you put them in, right? I think you need to create something first and then show it to your people to say, hey, look, if I can do it, you can do it, if that makes sense.
So it sounds like leading by example.
Yeah, of course, right? I think leading does not mean yelling commands, period. That's not leading. That's managing, orchestrating, however you want to call it. It's or taking yourself too serious. I think a good leader builds trust, and a good leader develops people that they want to follow, if that makes sense. So when we're recording it, I just read about it. Well, the coach of my favorite team just stepped down after 19 years, without a losing season. So for those of you who follow football, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But it is, I read articles about how the team was devastated because they didn't see that coming. And they said, no, 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 I want to play for you. Yes, of course, you make money if you're a star in the NFL, you make enough money, whatever. But no, 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 it's that I want to play for you. And he built that culture in that organization, right? Over that long period of time, which is, as we all know, NFL stands for not for long, which is, I think, a feature in itself.
Yeah, I like that. We've all had, challenges in our in life in general, but also in our entrepreneurial journey.
Mhm.
What's one challenge that stands out in your mind, and what did you learn from it?
Getting fired. Because what happens when you get fired, and unfortunately it happened 3 times to me in my 40 years, um, all reduction in force, whatever, right? I didn't steal the silver spoons, just in case somebody's asking. Um, the challenge is you take it so damn personal, right? You get all those thoughts about financial security, the future, you have a mortgage and kids and cars and whatever, right? But it's also the personal rejection. Oh, you don't want me anymore? Didn't I do a good job? Or wasn't I a nice guy? all those thoughts come up. And I think, just in case some young kid listens to it who hasn't been fired yet, uh, it will be better on the other side, right? It's a phase that you have to go through. See it as a phase where you grow, right? And try to reflect what works and what doesn't work. And again, I do not recommend getting fired, so don't try to do this, But if it happens to you, and I heard it happens once in a while, it's not the end of the world. You will survive. You will have something to eat, to do, whatever. You will be fine. But if you go back and you go through your 5 stages of grief and you got stuck in that self-pity phase, why me, then you have an issue and you need to overcome that. So I would see it's because it feels like that personal rejection. You take it personal, right? That is the one where I learned to grow. And just for those who, well, I ride motorcycles, and people say there's only 2 type of motorcyclists, those who have fallen and those who will, right? So if I transfer that for our young friends who just get started with their career, who haven't been fired, even that gets easier over time, right? You just stand up, wipe away the dust, update your resume, back into the battle.
I love that. It's that sort of can-do attitude and the fact that there is something bigger and better down the road. You may not be able to see it in that moment, but
Mhm.
trusting that.
Oh yeah, because yeah, what do we do? What do we do as humans, right? We try to put meaning to things, right? So that happens in, I would say, 99% of the cases. It happens in hindsight, right? I have not met anyone who said, I want to become CEO of the top 100 companies, and who had a line straight like an arrow to this job, because it doesn't exist, right? And the way how again, young people who listen, um, I'm not a big believer in 5-year plans or 10-year plans or career plans or whatnot, what I've seen in my career was, oh, there's an opportunity. That sounds interesting. You know, um, let's try it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But it was not a straight plan or a tactical, whatever, decision. It was like, oh yeah, that's the opportunity. It fits into the bigger picture. Let's do it. Take the risk, because obviously you can jump, and you jump too short or end up in an organization is not a good fit, been there, done that, right? But in hindsight, you gracefully asked me what my background was. In hindsight, everybody would say, of course, this guy can write books about this topic. He's doing it for 30 years. He worked on this side and on that side, and he worked with those prestigious firms and whatever, right? Nonsense. You create meaning in hindsight, So I don't know what should be written on your headstone when the time comes in 50 years, you know. Um, on mine, definitely wouldn't be, oh yeah, he knew what he did. You know what I mean? That's definitely not what's on it. I hope they write something nice. Not that I would care in that situation, but I hope they write something nice on it.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. If you look back, what's one success that you're really proud of?
It's a couple of things. Just to give you one example, I worked for one of the vendors, a smaller vendor in the BPM space, and I looked at it, and they did, how do I say that? Not the bare minimum, but it could be much more professional. And one of the things was, well, if you buy your software, then somebody needs to learn it, right? And I pitched the idea to say, hey, why don't we go and make our learning offering a loss leader? And that was in 22, and we built a whole university within a year, like 31 courses, multiple learning paths. We used that creepy AI avatar thing, when nobody was thinking about that. And use that because we had to translate our trainings in 4 languages, English, German, French, and Japanese. Do you know what it costs to ship people back and forth to record them? Well, that was a good thing. Either way, it took, and I did when we had our soft launch. No, actually, it was the actual launch. I did a slide, and I had, and you know how you can put in PowerPoint little photos in a shape. So I put circles on it, and I put photos behind it, or in those circles. 21 people, right? A fifth of the company. So it's like it takes a village to get this done in 3-4 months, right? And then obviously fast forward after a year, we had like 1,000 unique learners that had so and so many courses and blah blah blah. So we were in the thousands, and that was a moment where I looked back and said, "Good job," and we had I had one director for learning and then 2 instructional designers, and the rest were our consultants and pre-sales people that I coached to, hey, this is how I think a good training should look like. This is what you're supposed to do. Oh, no, we do the structure like this and all that type of stuff. That was I think a very proud moment that I had, which I try to replicate with What's Your Baseline now. So because second times are always better.
First time's always harder, but congratulations. That does sound like a huge win to get so many people on the platform and not only just building the platform, but also getting them on the platform. And
Also has, obviously, it had benefits. It gave the company exposure, right? Because the thinking that I had was the more people know about our product, and hopefully it's a good product, the more they're convinced, the more they will tell other people about it, the more interest you generate, right? So it wasn't out of pure, whatever, self-adoration, no, it had a business reason behind it, why I suggested that, and I was happy that our CEO, that she approved it at that point and said, oh yeah, Roland, good idea, go for it, and she let me do, and yeah, I liked it.
that's great. That's great. You've worn so many hats and you've learned so much from your journey. What are you excited about building next?
So, I don't know, you're obviously much younger than I am. When you're in your 50s, you start thinking about things like legacy, and you think about, oh, retirement, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I hope it's not 3 lights, it's just one, and you see the last lap ahead, not that I'm about to retire. I think I have another 5 to 10 years in me, but you start thinking about that stuff. So what I try to do with What's Your Baseline now is to give back. I made a lot of mistakes. I don't know if you noticed that. Some people might getting fired as a mistake. Anyways, so I made a lot of mistakes. I don't think that the younglings need to do the same mistake, right? They can learn from my stupidity, um, and I'm happy and I had that a couple of times when people come back and said, "Oh, I read what you did. I'm listening to your podcast. Keep up the good work. It's valuable for me." And when I get that personal feedback, not like, "Oh yeah, good bestseller. You sold whatever hundreds of thousands. I wish." Of the book, and you end up in some lists, well, not me, 30 under 30 or whatever is there, I'm past that prime. But it's the personal change. How did I change Karen? Right? If you come back and say, Roland, this was valuable to me, then I'm happy.
You talked about legacy. What does that mean for you? And what are you building around that?
If I knew that. little story. Uh, Many years ago, my younger son, who's now 23, in middle school, uh, I went down in my office, was working there, and he wanted something, and he was standing in the door frame, and I thought, Roland, once in a life, be the reasonable adult. And I said, Carl, what do you become? What do you want to become when you're grown up? And he looked at me like, Dad, I don't know that. I'm in middle school, but I know one thing for sure, not what you do. And I said, ouch, So now he's in college and he's studying industrial engineering, which sounds pretty similar to what I do, and now he's reading my books and we have conversations about, oh, processes, what is that, and all that stuff. So Mark Twain said it once. When I was 14, I couldn't stand my old man and his stubbornness, when I was 21, I was significantly surprised how much the old man has learned over the last 7 years. So yeah, it's exactly that. What do you do, and all that stuff.
Legacy is sounds like it's with your son.
Well, that obviously is there. I think, oh God, this is very macabre. I think it in the long run we're all dead. Nobody cares, right? I don't know if you have an idea who your grandparents were. I don't. So it's limited. Legacy is limited. Some people might be remembered, over hundreds of years, but the majority of us will just become compost, I guess. And I think if the people you touch in your life and they think of you and they think, oh yeah, that was well done. I think that's legacy. It's not money. It's not a big company. It's not the status symbol. I ride damn, how old is it? 18-year-old motorcycle. Yeah, 18-year-old. I haven't seen anything better now. And trust me, a lot of dealers made me offers. Oh, look at the shiny thing. I said, yeah, well, no. So it's not the shiny thing that's what's left behind. It's the quality time that you spend, the knowledge that you share, the things that you create that help other people. I think that's what legacy makes or means for me.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm,
I agree
I'm
for sure.
curious
For sure.
what your others guests answer to that question.
Everyone's different, but yes, I totally agree with your definition of legacy.
Mhm.
Impacting people around you today, helping them transform, give them some ideas, some knowledge, a transference of wisdom, right? It's all of that.
I was surprised what that old man learned in the last 7 years. Mark Twain was right.
Roland, thank you so much for sharing your story and your nuggets of wisdom. Where can our listeners find you online?
So we're obviously the podcast is wherever you get your podcasts. What's your baseline? Um, Apple, Spotify, all those places. The website is what'syourbaseline.com. One word, no apostrophes, no blanks, no nothing. And obviously I'm on LinkedIn. Please do me the favor, reach out. Follow us, do all that nonsense that the algorithms want us to do. Press buttons and all those things. Do that for me as well. But I end the podcast episodes actually with a request where I said, yeah, you do all that nonsense that you're supposed to do. But it's more important for me that you go and tell your five best friends about the little show that could, and ask them to listen in.
I love that. We'll have the links in the show notes below.
Thank you.
And thanks again, Roland, for joining me on the Leadership Lab. It's been really fun speaking with you today.
Oh, the joy is all on my side. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for spending your time with me today on the Leadership Lab podcast. My hope is that this conversation sparked a new perspective or reinforced something you already knew. Until next time, keep leading with curiosity and intention.